Lunch.
You are looking live.
Live at lunch. Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
What the hell's going on out here?
Now, here's Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff.
Yeah, for some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Is it live? Is it live? Is it live? Is it live?
From Big Mike Sports Bar and Grill in Denham Springs, welcome to the Monday edition of Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Charles Hannegriff, Jimmy Ott. Jordan Kitchen's back in the studio. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you had a good weekend if you dodged around cold and rainy weather a little bit. Having to move some baseball games around, having to move some parades around, having to.
Oh, they did have to move the parades around?
A couple of them, yeah. They had to move, but I'm sure everybody persevered. How was your weekend?
It was lovely.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's, my typical Saturday hunker down at the Queen and, on the way back at Los Reyes and, then Sunday evening crawfish at Sammy's. So,
wow.
it's kind of, yeah, it's good.
That's pretty good.
Got
to watch a lot of basketball this weekend. Watched all the baseball games for LSU. They lost for the first time. We'll get into that a little bit later. Watched the women's game yesterday, the big comeback.
Oh, yeah. I didn't watch a ton of that, but I certainly was tracking it. And, man, I mean, that's they flipped that game, huh? What kind of halftime speech did the little general have? Huh?
Spirited. How's that for a word? I'm sure it was spirited.
She's good. She's good, and that's I always thought. And listen, I'm not going to pretend to be the guru of women's basketball, but watching Kentucky a few times, I thought they were a little overrated. I don't think they're I'm not sure if they're – I don't think they're a top 10 team. Now, I haven't seen but I don't think they're USC, UCLA, Notre Dame, UConn, South Carolina, LSU, Texas, some others, So, anyway, they might be fringe, but I just don't see the personnel on their team that, but they're up there for a reason. Well, they won enough. But I just think they're kind of in that second 10, closer to that first 10.
Well, you know what they remind me of? They remind me of LSU in her first season here.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Because Kenny Brooks, who turned around that program.
He's the one for Virginia Tech?
Virginia Tech, yeah. And he brought, I think it's 3 of his players with him, but, Amore is the one that, the point guard is the headliner there. And they remember that first team that Mulkey had? We said, okay, how much can we expect her to turn around in a year? And we thought, hey, listen, if they get to 500 in the conference, that'd be pretty good for the first year. And they exceeded that. They went to the NCAA.
What was their seed that year?
They were 4 or 5, something like that.
We were putting it on, getting in the tournament or not.
Yes,
let's make it a pick 'em. Okay, they get into the tournament or not. And they got in easily. So yeah, Kentucky. It's his first year.
It's his first year.
Okay.
And so I think that there's some similarities there. They'll make the tournament. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them get to the second weekend of the tournament. And that's probably a hell of a thing for the first year.
You wonder because this thing could have been a little bit different. And
they were a 3 seed actually that first year that Mulkey was here.
Yeah. They far exceeded the regular season. But I do remember that Friday night Virginia Tech LSU Final Four semi.
Oh, look, Virginia Tech had an 8-point lead late third quarter. I think it was. Might even been 10.
I'm not sure about that. You might be a little high there, maybe that halftime. But there were definitely, I would say, they went at half or at the end of the third. But I know Virginia Tech was favored. Mm-hmm. They were a more established team at that point. And they
had the dominant post at Kitsley, I think was her name.
They had a lot of
plus they had
a lot of experience is what I remember. They had a lot of juniors and seniors in their rotation.
He had been there at that point 5 or 6 years, Brooks, and he had done a great job there. I didn't know this until I read it this weekend. His Virginia Tech teams that also played Mulkey in the tournament, either her last year or her second last year at Baylor, because they faced each other 6 times. He's had a good team every time, and she's beaten him every time. Yeah, which is, you would think that they would have gotten one somewhere, and maybe they'll see him again in the SEC tournament. Who knows? But it was a hell of a comeback, and boy, they came out on fire right from the very beginning of the second half. It was like they had gotten one of those, like you said, spirited talking tos at halftime. But, I've watched, I don't know, probably 10, 12 games now for LSU this season, and I come away with the same – it almost doesn't matter who they play. They have 3 elite players, Morrow, Johnson, and Williams, okay? Those 3 I would put up against any 3 in the country. After that, it gets a little dicey. Do they get the supplementary, production from their bench? Usually they don't. Yesterday, 6 points again off the bench. Do they get something out of Dave Wilson or Samaya Smith or Wolfenbarger, who played a little bit in the last 2 games? And not really as much yesterday. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And that's probably what will ultimately do this team in, is they'll run into somebody. That's what happened when they got to South Carolina. That's what happened when they got to Texas. But not necessarily, because these 3 are good enough to win it. They really are. They got to get hot. They got to stay healthy. They got to get the right matchups. They're not the best team in the country. I've seen, Texas and South Carolina. I watched that USC-UCLA game. I didn't see Notre Dame get beat yesterday. I saw the score.
They got beat?
Yeah. Who beat UConn, I think it was. No, that's not right. They
play an ACC schedule, right?
Yeah, they got beat.
NC State.
NC State, that's it.
In overtime. The girl hit the 3 to put it in overtime, but they rolled it. Sweet around the back finish layup in transition too. NC State.
So they're good enough, but they would have to catch some breaks. I don't think they're the best team. Are they capable? Yeah, because they've got 3 players who can
national championship. You'd rather play Iowa or South Carolina?
Yes, exactly.
Charlie, that semifinal, they were down 9 at the end of 3. They outscored 1 by 7. They outscored Virginia Tech 29-13 in that fourth quarter. And that's sort of a mentally tough team. When the game's on the line. That is flipping the game on a big stage and the biggest in the fourth quarter, and that's a reflection of your coach sometimes.
That was an experienced team, and this is not a deep team, but they are an experienced team. I mean, Anissa Morrow has started, I'm going to do this without looking, probably 120 college games. Flage's probably 90, 80 or 90 starts, and Michaela Williams has been a starter since the day she got on campus, so now you're talking about probably somewhere around 60 starts. Those 3, all day. All day.
Charlie, a lot of people don't have 3.
A lot of people don't have 1.
Exactly. So let's not act like are they the top team, but they can play. You saw. South Carolina's lost multiple games. They got smashed by UConn, and that ain't UConn of 15 years ago.
No, it's not. And they got beat by 29. I think
30.
It was.
Yeah, 29 or 39.
I thought it was 29. But anyway, they got crushed, and they never get beat like that. All of their streaks.
I think it was 38.
All of their streaks came to an end this year. The winning streak, the conference winning streak, the home winning streak, they're just not quite as good. They are deep. They have size, but what they lack, and I've seen them play 3 or 4 times, they don't have that Aaliyah Boston type of player, that dominant one.
Aaliyah Boston's where?
Indiana.
She's in the WNBA.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, nobody has Aaliyah Boston.
No. I mean, they don't have she was the player of the year. Okay.
I know.
And last year,
Charlie, they got an elite.
They don't have an elite player.
They got the top rebounder in the country, probably, right? Is she the top rebounder in the country?
Anissa Morrow is.
That's what.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was talking about South Carolina. I said they don't have an elite player.
Oh, okay.
At South Carolina, they don't have like that Aaliyah Boston like they've had in the
No,
in the past. They've got a bunch of
their
good
strength
players.
is their depth,
Yes.
and they can try and push the tempo and try and get into your bench. They're going to outscore your bench, that's for sure. But yeah, they're not as like you said. They don't. How many do they have going to be top three picks in the WABA draft this year? So it's not. But LSU's got elite players. They got top rebounder.
3 of them.
They got an elite playmaker in Flaugier.
Yep.
I mean, she can create for herself or her teammates. I mean, she can ISO and she can create and score at any point. And you got another volume scorer, and the sophomore. So it's just they got how much you work your role players. How much can you get out of them? Who's going to be hot different night? That's the great thing about sports. We try and look at all the numbers and the metrics and the spots and things like that, the coaching, but they're not robots. And, they go out there and play. And you just saw that from one half to the next in Rupp Arena yesterday with the tale of two halves there.
Yeah, they play. They actually play the women's games at Memorial.
Oh, they do?
Yeah,
on campus.
The smaller venue
on campus.
Yeah,
because Rupp's downtown.
Right, but it was hopping yesterday.
Okay.
I watched most of that game. He's really done a nice job, Brooks, with that program. So nice win for LSU.
Men or women's, it's about the coach.
College basketball, you get no argument from me. They go to Alabama. See if EJ wants to go to the game. That's that's Thursday. Alabama's ranked in the top 20, and then they finish with Ole Miss before the SEC tournament. So 2 games left for the.
EJ's roommate rolled him up though Friday night in a boxing match.
Oh, the boxing! How did the boxing?
Unanimous decision.
Unanimous.
It was a whitewash.
Agrees the judges, or it was.
Went off a dog on campus.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You got to check
freshman versus senior. Smashed him. Go ahead, Lucas. Lucas Strand with the big performance. He smoked him.
We're at Big Mike Sports Bar and Grill. So many cool things going here. First of all, this is one of the best happy hours that you will find from 3 to 7 Monday through Friday and all day on Sunday. It means $2.50 draft beer as well as bottled beer domestics. You got $4 wells and $4 wines. That's all day on Sundays. You want to come out and watch the basketball, the NASCAR. We're going to have, baseball now is into season. You can watch those here in the Big Mike's Bar. Live music every weekend. Titanium Rain will make their return this Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Bingo nights on Wednesday nights. On Thursday nights. You can win items off the menu. Line dancing on Wednesday nights and line dancing lessons. Trivia on Monday nights. So there's always something going on here at Big Mike. Stop by, get a great lunch, get a cold pop, and enjoy the sports on the big screens here on Aspen Square.
Is it safe to say there's always something going on at Big Mike's?
There's always something.
It's just a matter of what's your preference, but
yes.
Always doing some good things. I love when they do the trunk or treat for the kids.
Very community oriented.
People are worried about the safety of trick or treat, whatever. But they provide an alternative for the kid. Family oriented, community oriented, absolutely.
Live at Big Mike's, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Big Mike Sports Bar and Grill in Denham Springs on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Remember, the show's available on demand, LouisianaSports.net, 104.5ESPN.com. And we'll have a new Handycast for you dropping late this afternoon on the Tigers' 2 out of 3 wins against Omaha this weekend for baseball. The basketball team had one of the more unusual games that you will ever see. Florida, who's ranked number 2 in the country, came into the PMAC on late Saturday afternoon, and they were a 9.5-point favorite. LSU had won a couple of games, but they won up against the bottom of the league. This is supposed to be a pretty, I expected, Jimmy, going in this game, something similar to what happened when Auburn came in here. It's an exhale spot for a top 5 team. They are not going to be at their absolute best, but they will probably win the game and win it comfortably. And that's what happened. But how they got there was bizarre. LSU was trailing 29-15 with about 7 minutes to go in the first half. And to all the world, it looked like, okay, Florida's better. They're they're deeper. They certainly have an advantage on the glass with LSU playing a 4-guard lineup, and then all of a sudden, just seemingly out of nowhere, LSU goes on a 22-2 run. And if you were flipping back and forth the way I was, you're just like, wait, hang on a second. Let me back this up. What did I miss? And for 7 minutes, LSU they couldn't miss. They gave Florida fits. Todd Golden said, we got punked with some of the switching that LSU did on some of the high ball screens. And LSU took a 6-point lead to the locker room. Second half,
22-2 run.
22-2 run
in the half.
To go from 14 down, to 6 up.
My jaw was, my mouth was kind of wide. I'm like,
where did that come from? I got.
Wow.
It's kind of like we watch a lot of horse racing. A racehorse that is a long shot and is well back of the pack, and then on the backstretch just shoots up to the front, out of nowhere, but then, of course, fades in the stretch. And Florida's advantage on the glass was just way too much. 19 offensive rebounds for them. They did what I think most teams do with LSU, and we've seen it work a few times, not work a few times, which is somebody other than Cam Carter is going to beat us. We are not going to let him – we're going to hound him all over the court. And sometimes it's worked and sometimes it hasn't. But they hounded him all over the court, and he had his worst shooting game in league play. Then Florida won the game by 14. So if you didn't see any of the game and you're just like, LSU was supposed to lose by about 10, they lost by 14, okay. But how it played out was strange.
Yeah, and it's kind of – you don't have a lot of these games. And listen, college basketball, you have so many games, so many teams – and you still rarely have this type of roller coaster ride. 14-point lead. Did LSU get it up to 10 at one point early in the second half?
I don't remember. I can look it up real quick. I don't remember if they got it up into double digits.
Were they up by half?
They were up 6.
6. Okay. I thought they extended it maybe a bucket or two to start.
I don't think they ever got up 10. They got up 8.
Okay.
They got up 8.
Got up a bucket. And then to lose by 14, another 22-point swing. So, yes, you had a 14-point lead by Florida, a 22-point run by LSU, and a 22-point run by Florida. And it ended up 14.
14, yeah.
How is it possible? And this is one of my criticisms of we've beat the roster building into the ground.
Yeah.
But of McMahon, when you don't have the superior team, he likes to force the issue up tempo and increase the amount of possessions. When you have a game where you increase the amount of possessions, that gives the superior roster a better chance, a higher percentage of winning. And that's why a lot of teams won't play. And there's some teams that over-protect mode. It starts slowing it down and running clock. You can't do that right to start the second half. I get it. But it's just you don't have the horses to run the style that you're running. And that's sort of – and to have these crazy runs allows it. Now, listen, it's the same style that helped them build their own, have their own 22-point run.
Yeah.
And it was the same style that allowed the opponents to have a 22-point run. So I'm not going to just say, when you get to this point when you're winning, all right? Yeah. But maybe he'll be a better bench coach when he has more horses, maybe acquires. But this style does not fit the ability of the roster. And therefore it makes these, in-game dream, middle dream, whatever you want to call it. I mean, because that just 22-point runs by both teams. I got Rob Doster from Field to 68 on tomorrow. I mean, they consume, they eat, drink, and the whole deal with this college basketball. I'm not sure if we've had another game like that this year, Charlie.
Well, I haven't seen one.
None that I can remember.
No,
rip off, but there's just. It's just so rare. And Florida's really good, and Florida's got so much more ability on that roster. Golden was under some pressure. It's his third year. He was hired the same year McMahon was. And you go 3 years without getting to the tournament, you're going to have a hard time getting renewed.
Yeah.
And they're well on their way, obviously. So the one sort of the metrics that they use to evaluate a team if they can win it all, one of the metrics is the coach has had to be a top 20 offensive efficiency, top 20 defensive efficiency, by Ken Palm, and then the coach is Sweet 16 experience. He has not. He lost to McMahon in the first round in overtime, his one and only tournament appearance.
No, they went to the tournament last year.
Florida did?
Yeah, they
My
did.
bad.
They lost in the first round, but they went.
Okay. He did. Okay.
They were 11-7 in the league, and they got in. They
What
lost
seed
in the
were
first
they?
round. They were 24-12.
They were. Okay. See, that escapes me. Okay.
Yeah. I got to look up what seed they were.
But he has not been to the Sweet 16. Obviously, he doesn't have a tournament win. He's 0-for-1
They were a 7th seed.
Okay, comfortably in. All right.
Yeah. No, his big problem was the off-the-court stuff at the beginning of the season, where it looked like for a hot minute there that he might be out of a job.
For a hot minute, I wouldn't have given you an opportunity to bet that he was going to save his job.
I certainly, with what was reported, it was like he's going to be unemployed here very soon. Now, they came back, they investigated, they found out it wasn't quite as bad as the initial reports, and he's still there. I don't know if anything's going to come of this after the season. Certainly from a basketball standpoint, they've been fine. We'll see if any of that off the court stuff.
History tells us college basketball coaches who are going through some off the court issues usually have a better outcome after a good season.
Yeah.
I mean, LSU's the one that we're the morality champs,
Right. So. But from LSU's standpoint, what he's done here in the last few games is he's gone with his four-guard lineup because he doesn't want to play two of his – he feels like he's a little bit offensively challenged when he plays two of these bigs at the same time because Chest is really just a rebounder. And he seems reluctant to put Miller and Collins in there at the same time for any amount of time. So that comes with its pluses and minuses. You can go on these runs if, your backcourt gets hot, and they won a couple of games like that. And then, they get pounded on the glass here in the second half. But what I am at least a little bit encouraged by is Robert Miller had another really nice game. He had 19 points and 10 rebounds. He had a very good game 3 games back when they played Arkansas. He had the 16-point night there. Yeah. The 2 games in between where they won against Oklahoma and South Carolina, he was kind of invisible. So he's been inconsistent, but you see he's a prototypical flash player. You see flashes. You'll see 6 minutes here, 8 minutes there, and then you'll see him disappear for entire halves at a time, particularly on the offensive end. But he is not without ability, and he's one of those guys that I really hope comes back next year. I think that he will. He's a legacy. He's an LSU legacy. His dad played football here. He's from relatively nearby in Houston, Texas. So I really hope, because he's one of those guys that could make a jump from freshman year to sophomore year. Live in a gym, live in a weight room, dedicate yourself, because I've seen him improve. Because offensively, he was a mess in November and December, and now it's like, oh, okay, I see why he was recruited.
He gave one of the hot bigs all he could handle, too, in Arkansas.
Yeah.
He really threw the kitchen sink at him, and, it was
Big Z.
Yeah, he was Big Z couldn't handle him. He threw too many moves on him. So, you don't have that repertoire of low post moves without practice. So he has put some time in. If he can put some time in, in the strength and conditioning to get, make his game that much better. But he's very comfortable with his back to the basket and he's worked on his game, and it shows. He's got some. Charlie, is it just some flashes of 6 minutes, or has he put about a 4 or 5 game stretch together where he's breaking through?
No,
his early career.
No, he hasn't put 4 or 5 good games in a row together. That's kind of why I'm still calling him a flash. He had 16 points against Arkansas. Then he had 2 in the next game. Then he had 7. Then he had 19. So on the offensive end, no, it's been sporadic. It's been up and down. But I'm okay with that. Look, the season is not going anywhere from a team standpoint. I'm looking at individuals now. And he's one of the individuals I think can help you moving forward. A good off season for him could make all the difference in the world. It could be a real key cog next year.
I was listening to New Heisel and them on the ESPN radio, the college radio, and they had Randolph Childress from Field of 68 on, and they were talking about New Heisel was just kind of on the outside looking in on basketball. They didn't even know that Will Wade had gotten the vote of confidence. They made it, public that, not only he's back 100%, and they're going to increase the NIL player budget. But they said, does Willie Wade come back? Is there a chance? Well, no, because Wade's getting another job this year, and he ain't leaving the next job after 1 year. That we all think that's a long shot, but didn't even know. That's just such a non-player. How in the hottest league history's ever had.
How often do you hear about Kelvin Sampson's NCAA digressions?
Not much.
Never. I mean, almost never. I should say never. Almost never. Why? Because the rules that he broke at Indiana no longer exist. He got unauthorized phone calls, okay? And now he's at Houston, and you don't hear about that stuff. How often do you hear about Bruce Pearl's, who had transgressions?
A
little bit more. It was a little bit more serious, okay?
It was 2 stops.
It was at 2 different places, but not very much. And how much do you hear about Will Wade's? All the time, okay? With, like Sampson, rules that no longer exist. So, no, he will be blowing his whistle somewhere else next year.
Well, that's the story. Until he gets another job and he's successful and has a team, he's going to be competitive. Just how much, we don't know. But, he'll get that job next year, and he'll have a roster that's competitive immediately, and not one of these deals where, you need 2 years, 3 years, all that stuff. So all that song and dance.
Rebuilding is no longer a multi-year task in college basketball.
It's an excuse. Excuses are for losers. Legacy Title. Chad Reynolds, Legacy Title for all of your real estate closings. 296-0060. Full-service title company servicing all of South Louisiana. Fast, friendly, professional services, which you get every time you dial 296-0060. Our great team at Legacy Title. Ashley Donald, Mariana Haynes, Adrian Galata, Michael Platt. Buying, building, refinancing. Nobody choose but you. Choose Chad Reynolds at Legacy Title. 296-0060.
Live at Big Mike's in Denham Springs. Live at lunch. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jimmy, Charlie, and Troy. 3 best buddies sitting around talking sports bets. Let's welcome in Troy Macker from Bet Rivers.
All right, Troy Macker from Bet Rivers joins us right now. Troy, how you doing, buddy? How was your weekend in New York? Max is filling us in over here as we broadcast from Big Mike Sports Grill. Fun time in the Big Apple.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was unfortunate we had to leave Saturday morning, so we couldn't stick around to see the Duke Illinois game, or the better game, which was on Sunday at the Garden, at St. John's UConn. The Duke Illinois game, while a little bit more high profile, ended up being a bloodbath. Duke handed Illinois, I think, its worst loss in program history, or in the last 50 years. But we're an hours away from being a chance to see Cooper Flagg, which would have been cool.
Man, that was a whitewash. Duke likes to play a game almost every year at Madison Square Garden. A lot of times it's been against the home team, St. John's. I know they've played a few of those over the years, even when St. John's been down. But, boy, St. John's a slight favorite, about 3.5-point favorites yesterday at home against UConn. And the game against, who was it, Charlie? Was it the Marquette, where they closed it out really strong. They won and covered, but it just seems like that Garden crowd, just thrives off of the defensive efforts. When they get turnovers, block shots, shot clock violations. The fans just really get into it, really reward the strength of that team and their commitment to defense. And also another thing, you're up 18 at half, and they got it down to 9 at one point, but the effort, they don't exhale. Patino's very veteran coach. They just don't exhale a whole lot. Richardson went out with his third foul for a little stretch that allowed him to get back to 9 to Kari Richardson, but then they put it back on him again, and they smoked it. St. John's a better team in there at home. A real good home court advantage in my book is 5, so St. John's was the play yesterday.
Yeah, McNeely has been red hot since he came back from the injury. They smothered him yesterday. I think he was 2 of 13 from the field. Now, he got to the free throw line a lot, but he missed every three-pointer that he took yesterday. They were all over him.
I saw a couple of times, Troy, they're blocking perimeter shots, man. They contest everything.
Yeah, this team looks exactly like a Rick Pitino Louisville team from about 2010, 2011. They'll pick you up full court. They're really aggressive on the perimeter. Everything is a fight. They play defense for a long time. I think they're like top 15 in KenPom in average defensive possession, which means they really force. They try to force turnovers, but there's just pressure for 18 seconds of a 24-second shot clock, which is just crazy. I think Rick Pitino has to be in top 3 consideration for Coach of the Year this year, along with Pat Kelsey at Louisville. And there's, I would throw in the coach at San Diego, who's done wonders as a second, third year D1 program. They have 23 wins. But my concern about St. John's long term, and at this point, you may not be able to get them to make the Final Four at anything longer than plus 350. Last week they were plus 750, but they don't get to the line, and they're not a good or a prolific three-point shooting team. And if you're playing long defensive possessions, you may get some foul trouble in March. If you get down, how are you getting back in the game quickly? And it's getting to the line and scoring points with the time not coming off the clock and getting extra points, which meaning 3 as opposed to 2. And they don't do that very well. That is my one concern with the St. John team as a legit national championship contender. But I think they are better than most teams in the country.
Oh, it's on the offensive end. Richardson is kind of their guy that they can run things through, and he's got a lot of experience. He's got a lot of that New York playground, a lot of moves, that he could get his shot off at any time. Whether it's a lot of mid-range stuff, attacking the basket, he does share the ball as well. So running things through him, but no, they don't have enough scoring punch to win 6 games. I'll be surprised. They're going to beat some teams, but they have to create and get their easy buckets. Usually come off of their defensive turnovers and things like that.
Hey, Troy, hurry up right now on Bet Rivers plus 600 to get to the Final Four.
To get to the Final Four,
Matt just showed it to me. Yeah.
I would take plus. Yeah, I think that's more of a realistic bet than winning the whole thing.
Right. I would not pick them to win the whole thing, and really, a lot of people now this time of year are talking about futures bets for the NCAA tournament. Let's remember just how hard it is to win 6 games in 3 weeks. It is the best event in the country. It's one of the worst ways to determine the best team of the year. I'm become far more confident in betting on Final Four odds because all you got to do is win 4 games. That's a lot easier to project than winning 6 games when you're either going up against the Cinderella team you've never heard of or 2 of the best teams in the country.
It's like betting, betting pot gator. Top 5, top 10, or top 20 instead of an outright. But Wes Reynolds, his contribution, he gave it to us on Wednesday over at Roca. And
the Mexico Open. It was watching a train wreck, but multiple times over again by everyone in the field.
So what was the thing about the course, Max?
It favors long hitters,
right?
And that's one of the things we looked at with Pagator. Although there were some short hitters among that leaderboard, including the eventual
132 golfers, I think, in this field.
Sounds about right.
Okay, yeah. Pot Man was number 1
easily.
On driving distance.
Easily,
the guy who won 132. I mean, that's a bad beat. I mean, and then you play the par 5 twice, and I hate NBC. You criticize him, Max, but that announcer, man, he's going to have to get a lucky bounce here in the air. He calls it.
Smiley Kaufman, yeah, and
that was Smiley.
Nota Begay was in the booth, so I'm not sure who said it needed a good bounce, but Smiley Kaufman said, and he got it, and as it bounces off the cart path into play. So great break for him. He was actually given a cheers. Him and his caddy went up with a beer to the tree and thanked him.
Oh, really? After it
was over.
It's like playing golf with the president.
Interesting about this weekend is relating to Potgieter, the young South African, is that we had some marquee NBA games, especially on Sunday. We had some marquee college basketball games, especially, Indiana, Purdue. While Indiana's not good, that is a big game. It was on a Sunday marquee game.
Yeah.
The largest bet of the weekend from total handle was on Aldrich Potgieter to win the Mexico Open. And I think most of that money came in Saturday, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon live. We took more money on that than Purdue, than the Cavaliers against the Grizzlies, than, the Celtics against the Knicks on, Friday. We took more money on a relatively unknown golfer who should be really, really good in 2 or 3 years at a tournament that is, third or fourth tier in the PGA, which I found very surprising.
What did it look like on the handle for the hockey on Thursday night? Did you get those numbers back?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking third biggest hockey game since the start of January 1, 2024, so including all playoffs last year and all of this year. And the only 2 games that we took a larger handle on was Game 6 and Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Obviously, Game 7 is huge. Connor McDavid was obviously the story in that Stanley Cup and in the final of the Four Nations. It had, I think, the third or fourth most tickets. Certainly, we took more money on USA, where that's going to happen in basically every international USA event. But this was a rousing success for the NHL. I'm concerned about long-term longevity, whether or not you're still going to get this much star power in year 10 or 11, especially when the NHL players will be allowed to play in the Olympics starting this year or the next year. But for an immediate fix to all the discussion about bad All-Star weekends, this was an A++++.
Oh, shame on it. The NBA refused to adjust their schedule where they were forced to during COVID, which is more advantageous, and you're going to have more eyeballs on your league in July and August than you will in October and November in football season. But they didn't shift it. Okay, they didn't shift it. Maybe the players they're just in the players. They cater to them no matter if it's in the best interest of your sport or not. Now, if this isn't beating them over the head with all the different attempts, and it's just embarrassing. Guy for the G League has won the dunk contest 3 years in a row. I mean, that's embarrassing, man. I mean, you got your players saying it's U.S. versus the world. Play it. Now, will they have as much pride as the hockey players? Probably not, but it will be more. It can't be less. And, it will be competitive. It's a balanced, there are 2 balanced rosters. If they don't adjust, shame. And look, if you name to the All-Star team and you want to play in this and you decline. They'll take the next player. But, I think it puts a little bit more pressure on them to participate than what we're seeing right now. I don't think LeBron pulls out the last. And I don't have a problem with LeBron. If I'm a Lakers fan, which I'm not, I'd much rather him play the back-to-back, in the games of Thursday and Friday or Wednesday, Thursday, than him playing in his dumbass, whatever they call it, with this exhibition. Well, the hockey showed everybody up. There's no doubt.
Do it for baseball, too. The World Cup for baseball has been, really good. I don't know how many games you would play for.
You're talking about the World Baseball Championship?
World Baseball Championship. I call it the World Cup. Yeah, the World Baseball Championship. Hasn't that been exciting?
It's been great.
Didn't we when Ohtani
the last
faced
one was
Trout?
amazing.
Yeah. No.
Something like that. You can't – I don't think you could do it over a week the way you do it with hockey, but you could do tweak the format a little bit.
And it's so fun. The fundamentally sound Asian teams, the flamboyant and stylistic, Caribbean teams, and, kind of in the middle of the road America. I think I love it. I love it. I think it's really cool.
I don't know if you can just do a USA versus world because there really isn't a lot of pride there that you can tap into. But I think you could, have 2 teams or countries and then continental teams where, USA, Canada, you could do South America, Europe, Africa, and Asia Oceania. So you get Australia, mainland Asia on a team, South America, Brazil and Argentina primarily. Europe, you can have your Serbia, Slovenia, Spain, Germany, France.
Troy,
obviously is good enough.
Troy,
you can get 6 teams in there.
I will counter. The foreign players, the international players, have more pride than the American players. Okay, okay. This puts pressure on the American players to put it, and it would be extremely balanced. And you don't think there's a little? Did we? It's not the Olympics, but was there a lot of pride in the Olympics? Tons. Yeah. And this is a little bit. This is a little slice of that. No, you're not hockey. No, you don't. They don't lay it out. They don't have that pride. But you will be a big step in that direction. It's the only thing. I mean, they've tried everything else. I mean, Team Shaq. I mean, give me a freaking break. I mean, turn the channel. Never crossed my mind about putting it on, and I hadn't put it on in years. And it's just it just gets worse and worse and worse. Troy? The only thing with the Patino's going to get some votes. Gates from Missouri on pace for a 12-game improvement in the toughest league in the country, in the SEC. They're on pace to go 12-6. They were 0-18 last year. And the guy who's only lost one time this year in the SEC, and that's Bruce Pearl. He's got to be your front runner at this point. So, do y'all have odds on NCAA Coach of the Year?
We did preseason in reserve markets. We do not currently. In specific markets, we do have Naismith Player of the Year, but we don't have Coach of the Year. My only thought with Coach of the Year, and I guess at the national level it's a little bit different, but at the conference level, the Coach of the Year typically, the winner is someone who took their team from the lower spot early, the previous year and elevated them the most. It's almost a improvement award, which is why I lean Kelsey and so forth.
That's a lot in the pro leagues. A little bit different in college. But nobody's going to have the improvement that Gates is in Missouri in that league. So, I mean, but what did Louisville win last year? Where's their conference record?
Oh, they were terrible.
No, they had no. It's he's been outstanding. There's no doubt. But the ACC is not even close to the SEC this year.
They were 8-24 with 3 conference wins.
3 conference wins, and they're on pace to probably go about 12-6 in the league, maybe 13-5. They're going to the tournament. They're really good. So
right now they're 14-2. Yeah.
Yeah, 14-2. So he might have a bigger improvement. He's at 11-game improvement right now with some room to spare, and Gates is on pace for 12. Thank you, Troy. Great stuff as always. We'll talk to you on Friday. Troy Macher, Machir on X, live here at Big Mike Sports Grill in Denham Springs, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Big Mike Sports Bar and Grill in Denham Springs on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Kellen Moore continuing to round out his staff, has added a familiar name. Terry Joseph on his staff as defensive passing game coordinator. Jimmy, you obviously know all of the Josephs. He started his career at your alma mater.
He's a cousin of Mickey and Vance.
Yeah, and he started his career at Archbishop Shaw. This will be his first NFL job. He has been at Texas for the last 3 years, was at Notre Dame, was at A&M, was at Nebraska, was at Tennessee. A lot of college coaching. This will be his first NFL job on the staff as defensive passing game coordinator for Kellen Moore, who is just about done or very, very close to wrapping up all of his hires.
A baseball player at Northwestern State in his playing days, too.
That's correct. He was an outfielder.
Yeah.
We will be back with hour number 2 from Big Mike's Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Big Mike Sports Bar and Grill in Denham Springs on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Hour number 2 here at Big Mike's, where live music returns this weekend, as it does every weekend. On Friday night, Titanium Rain will be on stage here. Every day is happy hour here at Big Mike from 3 until 7 with $2.50 domestic beers, draft and bottle, and $4 wells, $4 wines. Those are good all day on Sundays. You come out to watch the baseball, watch the basketball, watch the golf, watch the NASCAR. Get it here at Big Mike's. And, of course, trivia on Monday nights. You've got line dancing on Wednesday nights, bingo, where you can win items off the menu on Thursday nights. There's always something happening here at Big Mike's on Aspen Square in Denham Springs. LSU baseball takes 2 out of 3 over the weekend. They suffer their first loss of the season. It's kind of what I call survival baseball over the weekend, especially on Saturday. The weather was lousy for baseball. It was cold. It was wet. And like I said, some of these games in February, I just call them survival baseball. You just go out there, get your work in, and get done. So a few of the highlights over the weekend. First of all, LSU's pitching and defense through 7 games has been off the charts. They don't have a position error in the field other than a catcher's interference in game 1. You've had a couple of pitchers throw some balls away, but for the most part, LSU's defense has been outstanding. They've made all of the routine plays and a few of the great plays. So that is very good. Cade Anderson built on his outing in week number 1, 8 more strikeouts and only a couple of walks. Maverick Rizzi and Kason Evans continue to impress. These are 2 high-velocity pitchers. Even with the cold weather, these guys were in the 96 to 97 range. Evans can dial it up to 99. Rizzi's about 6'9". So when he's throwing 96 and he comes through that follow-through, you can dial it up, even faster than that. So they were outstanding on Friday. Connor Binge, who was a surprise to us in week 1, came out and had a really good outing in week 1, had a nice outing on Friday, and then they saw if they could bring him back on Saturday. More of that in a minute. Jay Johnson tinkered with his lineup a little bit over the weekend. First of all, experimenting with other leadoff hitters. He had Daniel Dickinson in the leadoff spot in game 1 on Saturday, and then Tanner Reeves at third base in the leadoff spot on Sunday. Both of those guys got on base multiple times. Both of them scored runs. Stanfield, who had been the full-time leadoff guy, struck out 3 times in the game on Friday, so they gave him the day off on Saturday and put Derek Curiel, the precocious freshman, out in center field. He had a couple of walks in that game. Second game, and I would really say from the end of the first game, probably the last 2, maybe even the last 3 innings, it was a really listless, I thought, plate performances from LSU. They were not. They didn't look focused. Like I said, it's kind of survival baseball. Everybody's playing in the same weather, so it's no excuse. But from the last 3 innings on Friday to the first 7 and change on Saturday's opening game, they didn't get a hit. So when you go, 10 innings and you don't get a hit, that ain't good. But again, it was, like I thought, a very unfocused, listless, kind of fighting the elements type of deal. What was good on Saturday in game 1 was Anthony Ianson, who I thought looked sharper than he did in week number 1. 7 strikeouts. He only gave up 3 hits, worked out of a little bit of trouble early, and then kind of coasted the rest of the way. The worst inning for LSU all weekend, they went to the 7th scoreless in the opening game on Saturday, and they brought Grant Fontenot in. The first batter he throws to, he comes inside, and they rule that he was hit by a pitch. Well, they looked at this for a long time for a Saturday game in February, and they finally decided that the call was going to stand. I looked at it 10 different ways. I couldn't tell for sure. Point being that Fontenot stood out there for quite a while, and then he hit the next guy in the head. So that was 2 on and nobody out. They took him out of the game. Connor Binge came in. He threw a ball into center field on an attempted pickoff throw. Then he got a couple of outs, got a couple of strikeouts, and then he gave up the gopher ball, the 3-run homer that gave him a 5-0 lead. LSU got 4 in the 9th, but left. Got the tying run to third base with only 1 out. Hunt was doing the game on Saturday. He brought it up, and it was a great point. Derek Curiel taking third base with only 1 out to put the tying run at third base with only 1 out was a really, really strong base run in play. But Larson, facing a left-hander, struck out, and then they got the fly out to end it. and that gave LSU their first loss of the season. Cooper Williams, second straight good outing for him, the lefty that they flipped from Texas A&M, finished the game. Second game on Saturday, LSU's bats started to break out a little bit early in the game, and really Omaha ran out of pitching. LSU just demolished them in the last 6 innings. But Chase Shores, building on last week, wanted to see if he could increase that pitch count. Went from 67 to 84, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, only 3 hits. Zach Cowan, another good outing for him, and LSU rolled in that game 12-1. So the pitching was really good, save 1 inning the whole weekend. The defense was outstanding. The hitters went through a really nasty kind of like I said, about a 10-inning stretch there where they just didn't look focused at all, kind of survival baseball. Ratchets up a little bit this week. They play Nichols tonight. We'll see, I think, Gavin Guidry get his first outing of the season. He was supposed to start last Wednesday against Nichols before that game got canceled. And then they go to Globe Life to play Dallas Baptist, who is maybe the best mid-major team, the non-power conference team, one of them for sure. And then they play the series up at Frisco where they play Kansas State, Nebraska, Sam Houston. Nebraska's ranked, so ratchet up the competition a little bit this week.
Oh, I think significantly. A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. It's almost, and it doesn't mean anything, okay? Like, their strength of schedule, playing in the SEC, year in and year out, it's going to be fine. It's going to, but this non-conference scheduling is so weak that it's like go out of your way to find these weekends. Purdue, Fort Wayne. Did you even know it existed? I mean, Nebraska, Omaha. Are they called Omaha now? Okay, really? I mean,
Yeah. No, this is a weak non-conference schedule. There's no way.
No, but it seems like he goes out of his way to do it. So he has a reason. Has he talked about this? Explained this publicly before?
Well, they had 2 teams pull out on him on weekend series this weekend. He didn't want to say who.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they're going to do a little 4-game round robin or whatever.
Yeah. So somewhere in the off season, they had a couple of opponents back out on him for pre-conference. I don't know who they were. He hadn't said. I don't think he wants to throw anybody under the bus, but that's part of it. But no, this is it's not strong.
Go get Southern Miss. Go get South Alabama.
Yeah. By the way, Southern, they're going to be in a tournament next year. They announced that this weekend. It's Baylor, Southern Miss, and I'm forgetting the 4th team with LSU next year.
I mean, like this week's opponents, it's Sam Houston State, instead of just one with Dallas Baptist.
And most of the time when they go to these Texas tournaments, the competition is pretty good. Nebraska's ranked.
But you're asking teams that travel, limited budgets, things like that. You're going past so many teams that would be less expensive to bring in. Less expensive to travel. When you're going all the way to Omaha, how many more competitive teams along the way? There's got to be a reason for it because it is a.
I can tell you the reason. This is to sort out some of the lineup stuff and some of the pitching stuff. If you put a kid in and he excels against this level of competition, great. You can try to graduate him, like Skip used to say. But if you can't hit against this non-conference schedule, then you're hard-pressed to get conference at-bats or conference innings. It's a weeding out process, basically.
Well, LSU's going to have a superior roster, but these opponents are so weak. How can you get you tell me you're not going to get a better evaluation from a Southern Miss?
Yeah, you would.
Well, that contradicts your theory then.
Well, not really, because if you have a weak schedule, I'm not advocating for a weak schedule.
No, but it's a little bit you're saying you can find out more against a much weaker opponent than you can from a more competitive opponent.
No,
that's what you said.
Let me explain myself. If you go 1 for 11 in 4 games against this competition, then they know.
Okay, but if you go 6 for 9, how do you tell if you can face better?
Then you get a little bit of time.
Charlie, you don't get better. You get better by being pushed. I can't
defend this schedule.
Well, no, but you said you got a theory, and the theory doesn't make sense.
My theory is that in non-conference games, regardless of competition, you weed out the kids that you think can play. And I would rather they did it against a little tougher schedule.
And yes, that's true. But you find out way more by playing stiffer competition.
I wish they would play a little bit tougher than this.
Of course, everybody does. It's not like it's football.
And
that's going to wear you down.
And I think Johnson probably had a little bit tougher schedule lined up that didn't quite pan out. But no, some of these things you got to have some home games to pay your bills. And then I wish they played I wish they played a tournament in Houston every year. I think that's always been a really good tournament. I wish they had a Louisiana tournament. I used to bring this up with Paul Maneri. He didn't like the idea either. But to play a Louisiana tournament either on opening weekend or the second weekend, where you had LSU, Tulane, UL Lafayette, and then rotate the other school. But that idea has never taken any traction. That's just me. That's something that I would like to see. Probably the other Louisiana teams don't want to give up the home games. But in the meantime,
your Louisiana teams are used during your midweek because of proximity. But you're going past a lot of teams that would be cheaper, less expensive to come and make the trip to Baton Rouge than Indiana, Nebraska.
Yeah.
And so that's why. But, I mean, Charlie, you are trying to see, and you can say, well, you got 10 SEC series, you're going to be able to determine enough at that point. But those are important enough that, I mean, I want to see something that's a little bit closer to SEC competition. And I think that when you're challenged, you see more. You disagree. You're making an excuse. I understand. LSU looked great. But you said they were disinterested for 10 innings.
They're not
disinterested because they're playing the opponent?
I agree with you, okay? I agree with you. The schedule's not good. Now, this is how he's choosing to evaluate his personnel. I wish it was a little bit tougher. And, yeah, the weather sucked, and the opponent is not anything to get overly excited about. And it was 10 pretty blasé innings of at-bats on Friday and the end of Friday and the most of the first game on Saturday. I don't know that it's the biggest deal in the world. I've seen weak non-conference schedules.
This is the only time we talk about it because once SEC play goes.
Right.
So,
and you'll have at least two tournament teams that you're facing this weekend. Dallas Baptist and Nebraska will be tournament teams.
But one thing you can tell, okay, you can't really get a great gauge on a pitcher because when it gets inferior opposition. You can't really get a gauge on the hitters because inferior pitching. But your fielding that you talked about, those are balls put in play.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna be able. It's kind of like maybe in basketball. If they're shooting from three, they may get higher quality looks, but you'll be able to see that that's the best evaluation when you go in such weaker competition.
And they've thrown strikes too. The place still 60 feet.
Yes.
They've done a very good job of that.
Charlie, Kansas State actually went 3-0 last weekend. In Globe Life Field, they beat Arkansas and TCU.
Wow!
So they're, they might not be a tournament team. They're a formidable opponent as well.
Yeah, like I said, the competition.
What's their overall record?
Is
4-4. They struggled in their opening stretch. They went up to Coastal Carolina and played some series there. They went 1-3 while they were there.
And Nebraska was ranked. I didn't check the rankings this morning. They were ranked last week. Dallas Baptist is ranked. Nebraska was ranked last week. I'm not sure if I hadn't seen the rankings come out yet today. You might check Nebraska for me because I know that they were ranked last week. Shows today brought to you by Coastal Capital Advisors, your full-service financial advisors, because when it comes to retirement, there are no two situations alike. Coastal Capital Advisors will work with you, your business partners, your legal team, and tax professionals to make sure those goals are achieved. Coastal Capital Advisors will work for you, and I know for sure because they work for me. For more information, contact Phil Fontenot and his staff at 337-981-1376 or online at coastalcapitaladv.com. Advisory services provided by New Age Advisors. Securities offered through New Edge Securities, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC.
Yeah, Nebraska dropped out of the rankings. Dallas Baptist 19th and LSU 2nd again this week.
All right, and LSU plays tonight against Nicholls State at the box. That game rescheduled. In fact, they rescheduled both of them. They were supposed to go to Nicholls last week. They're going to go to Nicholls in April, and they moved that game to tonight. And we think Gavin Guidry is going to pitch. Live at Big Mike's, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at Lunch with Ott and Hanny from Big Mike's Sports Bar and Grill in Denham Springs on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
That's Oregon State is the other team that is going to be in that tournament with LSU, Baylor, Southern Miss, and Oregon State. So that's a pretty good
next year.
Next year,
where?
Yeah, Frisco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that'll be pretty good. I like the tournament in Houston. It's a little bit easier to get to, but I'll take good competition wherever we can get it. The rest of the weekend in college basketball, some of this we were on. Some of it we missed by a little bit. Arkansas was a favorite play of two or three of us. With Missouri coming off the big win against Alabama, Arkansas with an important win for them as they beat Missouri 92-85. Jimmy, I watched most of this game. I thought this was dead even for about 30 minutes, and then Arkansas just a little bit better in the last 8-9 minutes of the game. I thought it was really well played. Missouri's right now a protected seed, and Arkansas is trying to get themselves into the tournament. So I thought that was a nice win for the Hogs, and thank you, they covered as well.
Yeah, Arkansas pulls away and outscores Missouri by 14 in the second half. So flips a 7-point deficit into a 7-point win. So it was really in the second half that they won this game. Lenardi has not updated his bracketology just yet. Jerry Palm, a CBS Sports line, has. And Arkansas is now in the last four in. The team that got a pivotal win yesterday, Indiana, against Purdue. They, how about the run they went on to? It was like a 28-5 run that they turned a 10-point deficit into a double-digit win. Indiana is now in the last four in, so they're battling for their coach. Kind of some damaging losses. Texas goes to South Carolina. We talked about South Carolina is going
at home.
At home, they are tough. Well, they finally got it, and it wasn't close. Double digits. So Texas, and I really think it's make or break for their coach. If they get in a tournament, he may even have to win a game in a tournament. But if they don't make the tournament at Texas with their budget, I think he's going to be out, and he's in the first team out on Jerry Palm's list right now. Georgia more competitive than most, but you can't ding them for losing to Auburn. They did cover, however, at Auburn, so they were way more competitive than they have been. One of the big losses was away from our geographical radar, was on a lot of people's radar, and that was Gonzaga. Gonzaga lost a tough, hard-fought game to St. Mary's in the Bay Area. Now they get the return trip, and they were favored by about 7 points. And St. Mary's almost gate to wire wins it. Wins comfortably at Gonzaga. So Gonzaga they're still in, but this was one of Matt Human's teams to watch this year, and they win it all. They dropped to a 9 seed. And so, St. Mary's, another one is Randy Bennett. Does he want to move to a bigger athletic budget? They're all talking. Everybody's barking about.
How long has he been there?
He's been very, very comfortable. Few's been very, very comfortable at Gonzaga. But, you're starting to see some of the itch toward the bigger programs. Now, he's got an interesting pipeline to Australia as well. He's never really made a run. He's never been close to a Final Four. They're usually one win or not in the tournament, and they're pretty much out. But they to sweep Gonzaga is pretty impressive.
23 years he has been at St. Mary's. He's 62 years old. He's won that league 6 times over the years. He's been Coach of the Year 6 times. Look, Mark Few has had every opportunity in the world to move on. I think there were times where Mark Few could have had, in some kind of order, the North Carolina job, the Indiana job, not the Kansas job. Self's been there forever, but some of the big, not the Duke job either, because they were going to stay in-house. But I think that there were multiple top 10 jobs that he could have had over the Arizona, if you could still consider Arizona a top 10 job. And he's turned them all down. He wanted to stay where he was. I don't know if Bennett feels the same way, but he's been there about as long as Few's been at Gonzaga.
Some other big ones. BYU, highly controversial call at the end.
What did you think of the call?
Terrible.
Yeah, me too.
Terrible. Made up, anticipated. You made a call that didn't exist, and you got to see it, especially with the game on the line. They were down 1. They had just missed the front end of a 1-1 to allow Arizona to come down and take the lead. But BYU way more competitive. Had lost on their home floor comfortably. I thought that they would win really, but something about that team that loses on their home floor, getting that revenge on the way. Got the same case tonight, where Houston lost on their home floor earlier in the year to Texas Tech, and that game's basically a pick-em tonight in Lubbock on the return trip. And then the one right out the chute, and, guy's a catch-and-shoot guy. I mean, Tennessee, when they get a guy that hits his first 7 of 8 3-pointers, like Lanier did, but Charlie, he's like, remember Pages Stojakovic?
Yeah.
Okay. He could drain him from 3, but he could not. How many times did you see Pages Stojakovic take somebody off the dribble? Couldn't. Same thing with Lanier. He's an easy guard and we respect Buzz Williams a lot, but he blew it here. You can't leave him. You just can't leave him and overreact to dribble penetration. And in the secondary break, you got to find him first. Way too many clean looks. He hit way too many threes. A&M jumped out to a 9-point lead, but Tennessee, a big road victory for them.
Well, you're talking about the shots he hit at the beginning. How about the ones that they hit at the end? This is a 1-point game with 4 minutes to go, into the last TV timeout, and Tennessee missed one shot the rest of the way. They made all 4 of their threes. They made all but one of their free throws, and they missed one shot from the floor.
And it wasn't just him. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So they
down the stretch. Yeah.
You see how many threes Zakai Ziegler took?
2, 3.
No, our favorite number.
4.
4. 2 out of 4. they hit 13 out of 27 overall as a team, and they were strong coming out the gate, and they were strong coming down the stretch.
I was thinking about back-to-back possessions. He lost track of the shot clock. Back-to-back possessions. He's dribbling when the shot clock violation goes off.
That shouldn't be something that happens for a guy that experienced.
No, and he's just.
And look, I had A&M in this game. I liked A&M at home, and I thought going into the last 4 minutes, I said, okay, I'm okay here. I got a shot, and Tennessee was just better in the last 4 minutes. If those teams played 10 times, I think they'd probably split them. Very, very comparable. Tennessee hit some shots.
I'd say Tennessee would win a higher percentage at home, but in College Station, it sure seemed that way. But A&M really they went off to a nice one, but they can't lose here. He's their number one scoring option. He's a catch-and-shoot guy. You just can't allow him that many clean looks and give up that many cheap points along the way.
Does Palm have Vandy in right now? They got a nice win against Ole Miss.
Oh, Vandy was in before.
They were in before.
They secure their spot. They're at 9. They're comfortably in.
Net 43. Yeah. They're a 9 seed. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they're comfortably in right now. The 4 seeds are Auburn, Alabama, Florida, and Duke. How about that line movement overnight where it was 7.5 on Alabama? It went to 11.5. They still cover at the end. Boy, you had some middle opportunities galore on Saturday and some on Sunday as well with these streaks that we see in college basketball.
They just made more shots than Kentucky. I know it sounds simplistic, but pretty much every number in the game was even, except Kentucky shot 53%, and Alabama shot 53%. Kentucky shot 43%. Turnovers, rebounds, pretty much everything else, free throws, everything else was equal. Alabama shot the ball better than Kentucky.
Undefeated day for Chris Massaro on the show Friday. He looked for a bounce back, and one of his spots was Virginia Tech, who scored 35 points. Charlie has a dog. 1.5 point favorite. They win by 13 on the road at at Miami, so he gave out Michigan State on Friday night. Arkansas against Missouri, so 3-0 day for him. And that Michigan State, Michigan Richardson, he's a freshman. He's a guy. He's a guy that can do it. And I just sit there and watch this Wolf. And I mean, just looks like a bull in a china cabinet. 7-footer, big old thick guy, and he's trying to dribble, throw all the passes. His numbers, his turnover to assist rate, or assist to turnover ratio, was the best game he's had all year, 8-2. But Michigan State uncharacteristically hit a lot of threes in that game, so that was the big story for them.
You forgot the biggest rocking chair Massaro gave us the whole weekend. The last game of the night to finish, I think, Saturday night. He gave us the over in Arizona BYU.
Oh, he did?
He went over about 50.
He did?
Yeah, he went. It's written down right here.
Okay.
Okay. The game went over by, I think, 48 or 50. You go to bed early.
No, I watched the whole thing. It was
total was 153.
BYU just kept waiting for him to cool off. They never did. They looked like they were playing at home. Rarely do they look that comfortable on the road.
I was dozing.
They looked great.
I had to watch the highlights at the end the next morning.
So even as bad as the controversial the final call was, BYU couldn't have played any better. Both teams shot well over 50%, well over 40% from three for the game. So yeah. Speaking of I talked about it earlier, man. Part of my Saturday routine is I go hit my friends down at the Queen, and Tommy and them do a great job of getting all the games on. They even had a little horse racing, had a little golf on, had some hockey, had some NBA. I mean, it just do a wonderful job. And busloads of college basketball on at the sports book. DraftKings outlet. So, and then on my way home, man, I hit Los Reyes Mexican Grill. That's right, Los Reyes Mexican Grill on Lee. And got some steak fajitas and some enchilada plates, and always that fresh guacamole. Best guacamole around. I like to get it with some fresh jalapenos as well. So the nice little house margarita, 2:30 to 6:30, 7 days a week is happy hour specials on house or top shelf, frozen, or on the rocks. And when you get your bill, you won't get that sticker shock when that sometimes you get with some other restaurants around town. Lunch specials each and every day, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. Los Reyes Mexican Grill, big crowd on Saturday night. They can handle all of your big parties. If you got it, call ahead of time. You got the whole baseball team coming, no problem. Private parties as well. We can reserve the patio room. And when the weather is right in springtime, we roll up the garage doors in the indoor-outdoor. So you can sit outside in the get a little sun if you want, or you can sit in the covered patio and enjoy the open air as well. Los Reyes Mexican Grill on Lee, right across from Mike Anderson's.
Live at Big Mike's, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Big Mike's Sports Bar and Grill in Denham Springs on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Ball crawfish here at Big Mike's coming out tonight. You can get ball crawfish and ball shrimp tonight. It's also every Monday's all-you-can-eat ball shrimp here at Big Mike's on Aspen Square. Big Mike cooking the crawfish himself
there you go.
Out back. So you can come by here, get your hot ball crawfish and ball shrimp here on Monday night. We got some games tonight. You know who's playing tonight, Jimmy? North Carolina's playing tonight. You know who else they're playing? Florida State. Yeah, Kansas is playing tonight. You know what those two teams have in common? Both of them were in the preseason top 10. In fact, Kansas was number 1, and neither one of them are ranked now.
Kansas is in the tournament. North Carolina's just out. They did take care of business on Saturday and jumped out to a 14-0 lead. It was pretty even Steven the rest of the way. Virginia would get it just inside of 10. They cover just outside of 10. But yeah, North Carolina.
You said that Palm's got them just out?
Just out. First 4 out. Yep.
So their net is 45 and Vandy's is 43. Vandy's a 9 seed. North Carolina's out. Mm-hmm. They got similar records. So Vandy's is 18 and 9. North Carolina's 17 and 11.
One team plays in a much tougher league.
I'm just you get the contrast, right? Mm-hmm. The ACC versus the SEC in basketball forever.
Yes,
but
yes,
not now.
No. And I mean, we said this because once the hay was in the barn and all of the non-conference games were done, including your one that you usually have during the season, like an SEC Big 12 challenge. You had an SEC ACC challenge in December. It was done. So then the SEC is just playing amongst each other. So it's not going to come off this perch. So you had even like LSU. LSU had, the worst NET you had was South Carolina in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And they beat the team that's 13-2 in the ACC at Clemson. So, it's just, you got a lot of, no, this was very predictable, and they're going to, just how many depends. Either you're going to have some of the fringe teams, like Oklahoma got a much-needed win. Vanderbilt got another win to help themselves. They're comfortably in right now. But Arkansas, they needed it, they got it, and so they're in. Georgia is that one team that might be on the outside looking out, and he is the fourth one out, according to Jerry Palm, right now. So it's just a matters how, 12 or 13, 11, are going to get in, but the way the cards fall the rest of the way.
Now, and Georgia, 41 net. All of these teams are right there within 5 of each other. Vandy, who's in. Arkansas, who is, you said last 4 in?
Yes.
Okay. And Georgia, who is just out. North Carolina, want to throw them in. Oklahoma's a little bit further back at 51, and LSU and South Carolina have dropped back into the 80s now. But you have 13 teams that are in the top 43 in the country out of the Southeastern Conference right now. And you're going to have, I think, 2 number 1 seeds for sure.
Oklahoma, comfortable win against Mississippi State. That was another confusing line movement. Man, the public really got some late movement on Mississippi State. Went from about 1.5 to 4.5 was the closing line. And Oklahoma wins 93-87 and pretty much gate to wire. So Palm's got them just a notch ahead of the last 4 in as an 11 seed right now. But they had to win that game at home.
Yeah, and Mississippi State, their road record's actually not all that bad. I was going to say it's been at home. I got that confused. Their home record is they've lost 4 conference games at home, but they've won 6 overall games on the road. They've been sort of the backwards team as far as the home and away.
Yeah, Nebraska is one of those teams that
they play tonight too.
Yes, at Michigan, key game. Against Michigan at home in Lincoln. So I like Nebraska to hold service right there. So
you said Houston and Iowa State was a game you watched on Saturday. I didn't get to see.
Yeah, it was such a goofy
that
game because Friday night they announced at least give what's my boy's name, that the coach, the little musclehead looking guy. It's talking Brandon. What's his name?
Holzenberg
for Iowa State.
TJ
Hotzenberger. Yeah. So he didn't play games with it. He said their top 2 scorers were out. We're talking 31.5 points combined. Okay, it's hard to score against Houston to begin with. And then you take your top scoring options, and it was just a steady Houston climb. They were leading about 4, 6, 8, building. Got it up to the mid-teens, and it looked like it was going to be about a 20-point win. And out of nowhere, Iowa State just gets hot. They get in a rhythm on offense, and they go on like a 14-0 run, and bam, because L.J. Crowder had to hit a bunch of shots just to hold them from losing outright. Now, and then the final score was like 9. It was a lot closer down the stretch than 9. And Cryer, he is the guy that they have not had. They've always had one. It used to be Shed that they were trying, ISO and give him the last couple of years. Before that, it was Davis, the kid from Lafayette that they would ISO for. This Cryer is a more complete scorer than those guys. And he could score from anywhere on the floor. He's just not a shooter. He had a lot of mid-range game, a lot of stuff like in the paint where he penetrated little floaters, threes. He has a expanded repertoire of offensive moves that really helps him when they can in a tough spot, which out of nowhere Iowa State it was a hell of a game, and it looked like Iowa State was just going to be undermanned and, go and lose by about 20 or so.
And Houston turns around and goes to Lubbock tonight where they're a small favorite. Remember the first game these teams played. It's the only game Houston lost at home all year.
Leading scorer for Texas Tech and the coach get ejected 5-10 minutes into the game.
It was an overtime game, if I remember right.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And Texas Tech won it by a point. They go back at it tonight in Lubbock.
Lubbock, one of the toughest places one of the biggest home court advantages around.
Well, you can't get there from here.
Huh?
You can't get there from here.
Another one of the jobs that Rich Rodriguez turned down after he visited. Said, I don't know if I can get players out here.
It's in the middle of nowhere. It's a fairly big city, though, for the middle of nowhere. It's like 200,000 people in Lubbock.
Is it?
It's not.
So it's like Baton Rouge size?
Yeah, just in the middle of nowhere. I mean, like I said, you can't get.
If you ever driven through West, it just goes on and on and on.
When you leave San Antonio, don't plan on seeing anything for quite a while.
But this is after losing, their best coach ever, in Chris Beard.
Yeah,
and that really stung when he left him for Texas. I mean, they were, that hurt. I mean, just a reminder that you're still Texas' little brother. I mean, you didn't need the tiered revenue distributions for you to be on the B or C tier compared to them being on the A tier. A&M was even on the B tier.
Oh, gosh.
Nebraska was on the B tier.
Look, I remember when Texas A&M was a Southland level program, okay? In the 90s, in the late 90s.
Southland?
Hang on. You and I both did Southern basketball, you remember? Okay, in the late 90s. Texas A&M came to F.G. Clark, and Southern beat them by 30. I did the game, okay? So they were, nowhere close to what they, are now.
Gillespie had success there, enough success to get the Kentucky job. Okay?
No, they turned it around. I'm going all the way back to the 90s now. I'm going back
Gillespie,
a long way.
He wasn't in the 90s?
He may have started in the 90s, but his heyday was in the 2000s.
What you got, Max?
Oh, I was just going to mention something, a little off topic, but Troy Macker brought up UC San Diego, maybe being coach of the year, Eric Olin.
Oh,
they have covered 9 in a row, and they're already a popular team, right? Their lines are probably inflated because they're getting a lot of attention. They're 24-4, but they're 21-5 against the spread for the season, covering 9 in a row.
No, the number one spread team in college basketball.
They were a 15.5-point favorite this weekend at home against Hawaii. They beat them by 39.
Yeah, they won by 40.
They are blowing out everyone they played. They have some decent wins to their resume. They're currently 35th in KenPom, 36th in the net ranking. They played San Diego State in their opener. They lost by 5 in that game. But James Madison, who leads the Sun Belt, they beat them on a neutral floor. They beat Utah State on the road, a team that's got 4 losses. They were 10-point dog in that one. They won by 2. They are a great team. So Eric Olin, I just want to give him his flowers once again. He's done a tremendous job. This is their 4th season in Division I basketball.
Cal Irvine, who they were tied with, who they split home and away. Both teams won on each other's home court. And they lost this past weekend, so UCSD is now in the in first place in the regular season. First year in Division I, and so they made the move up. But they are eligible for the tournament. But with Irvine losing another game, it might be tough. And there's your classic case. You go put a 4-10 Oklahoma in ahead of an Irvine or UCSD, whoever loses if it's in that final. That's a classic case. There's so many mulligans you get when you play in a power league, but you should weight it some. Just how much? That's going to be the big questions.
Irvine's probably not good enough to get in. I think the bigger question is if Irvine beats them in the tournament.
UCSD has they're about 40 right now.
In the net, they're 36th.
For them to have a better than 40 on NET is
in the Big West. Yeah,
is super impressive. By the comparison, Irvine's like in the 60s now.
Yeah, they
were
dropped
around
all the way
50.
to 67.
Yeah,
which
they
is
were
McNeese territory.
They were in the 50s, but they dropped after they were upset. So
Gillespie got there in 2005. In the 90s, Texas A&M was 59 games below 500 in conference play. Had one winning season though. When Gillespie got there, he had 3 good seasons and got the Kentucky job.
Yes, indeed. Don't forget our friends at Total Diamond Performance. Total Diamond Performance and their The new facility, man, it's right next to the attraction and all the baseball fields where they hold all of the all of the tournaments, and so it's really convenient if you want to have. Mardi Gras camp is right around the corner, so they've got that for you. So that's a great way if you're in town to take advantage of their skills camp. So best way to contact Total Diamond Performance is nick@tdpbaseball.com. But there you are, right there, their new facility, the first baseball season that they are open at Burbank and Gardere, just adjacent to Attractions baseball field. So Total Diamond Performance, get individual lessons, group team lessons, staff lessons to help you structure and organize practices to get the most out of your time. Contact nick@tdpbaseball.com.
Live at Big Mike's, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch.
Gear up for spring with the Thibodeau Store. Outdoor power equipment right now. Pressure washers from DeWalt on special on the website at ThibodeauStore.com. Channel lock shop vacs up to 50% off on the website. Again, ThibodeauStore.com. Your big green egg cookers and lots of grills as well as patio furnace. Adams Patio Furniture on special on the website right now as we get ready for spring. You're doing home improvement projects. Let the experts at the Thibodeau Store help you out so you're not wasting time or money as you get those projects up to speed. Lots of fishing gear, custom-made Cypress furniture, tons of Cajun cookware that is available for delivery off the website at ThibodeauStore.com. And in person, it's 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodaux, the Thibodeau Store.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Big Mike's Sports Bar and Grill in Denham Springs on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Man, that some bad news today. I love this guy. And Max just got back from New York City where he was at Madison Square Garden. Al Troutwig passed away this morning. Only 68 years old. And, of course, he has forever been, with MSG Network. And,
yes.
He's worked for a lot of other people, too, but that's what I most commonly associate himself with. He worked for the Knicks. He worked for the Rangers. He did play-by-play for all the major networks and several of the cable ones. Did the Olympics. Real solid guy. Passed away at the age of 68. That's a little sad news there. Want to thank the folks here at Big Mike's. Ball crawfish every day here at Big Mike's. And on Monday nights, it's all-you-can-eat boiled shrimp starting at 5 o'clock all the way until close. Music this weekend, Titanium Rain here on Friday night starting at 9 p.m. Line dancing on Wednesdays. Bingo on Thursdays. Trivia on Mondays. There's always something going on here at Big Mike's. One of the best happy hours anywhere from 3 until 7 Monday through Friday and all day starting at 11 a.m. on Sunday. You get $2.50 draft and bottled domestic beers, $4 wells, $4 wines, and, of course, again, those are all day on Sunday. Jimmy, LSU baseball tonight. That is at the box. They play Nichols. That's one of the makeup games. And men's college basketball tonight, Michigan, Nebraska, Houston, Texas Tech, Kansas, Colorado, North Carolina, Florida State among your highlights. Probably the best game, Houston and Texas Tech, although Kansas 6.5 going to Colorado, who's the worst team in the Big 12, maybe worth a look. Just maybe worth a look.
Colorado beat Baylor on Saturday at home.
Yeah, and that's why I'm thinking maybe Kansas got to get something going, man. That's a rough group. I get the day off tomorrow, but Jimmy and company loaded up with guests tomorrow from Mike Anderson. From all of us here at Big Mike's, I'm Charles Hanniger saying thank you and good afternoon. Stay tuned for Hunt Palmer, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.